today we're going to be going over our day 7 math. The first thing we have is a math task. And again, we've been working on place value, and that is going to continue today with this math task. If you look at the directions, we're ordering 3-digit numbers. And number 1 wants us to arrange the following numbers from least to greatest. And remember, least is the number with the lowest value, and then the greatest is the number with the highest value. So we need to put them, basically you're putting them in order from smallest to largest. And to do that, we need to focus on the place value. If you look at all of the numbers, we have 476, 647, 74, 674, and 476. If you look, they're using the same numbers. They're just putting those numbers in a different order, which does affect the value. So we need to understand we're going by place value, starting with hundreds, moving over to tens, moving over to ones. So in this case, because they are looking for least to greatest, we're going to kind of start backwards and we're going to look at the ones. They all have a number in the ones column, so we need to move on. And we're going to look at tens. And when you look at 74, 74 has a 10. A number in the tens column, but there is no hundreds. So we know 74 is going to be the number with the least value. Now moving on, we're going to go ahead. The rest of them all have a digit in the hundreds, so we need to figure out which one now is going to be the least, the one that comes next with the least value. So if you look at the hundreds column here, we have a 4, a 6, a 6, and a 4. So we're going to focus on the 4s because we know 4 is less than 6. And in order to determine which one's going to come first, now we're going to look at the next digit in the place value, looking at the tens, and we're going to see which one is less. So we have 4, 7, and we have 4, 6. We know 6 is less than 7, so we know that 467 is going to be the next number from least to greatest. Okay, so we've already used 2 numbers. We have 3 numbers left. Because the other 400 number, 476, is the only number with 4 in the hundreds left, we know that 476 will come next in that order. Okay, we have 2 numbers left. We have 647 and we have 674. Again, the hundred spot, it's the same value, so we need to look at the tens. We have 647 and we have 674. And because we're going from least to greatest, we need the one that has the less value, which is going to be 4 is less than 7, so we know 647 is going to come next. And that leaves us with 1 spot left, which is going to be 674. Remember, even though these are the same numbers, depending on where they're placed at in that number is going to determine their value. So you really need to focus on the hundreds, the tens, the ones, and what the specific value of that digit is. Okay. Moving on to number 2. Now they want us to arrange the following numbers from greatest to least. So now we're going to start with the biggest number and we're going to work our way backwards to the smallest number. Okay, so basically the same thing we did in number 1, just in reverse. So we're looking for the greatest value, and here we know that it's not going to be 63 because there is not a hundreds column there, so that's going to be our least, but we need the greatest. So if we're looking at the hundred spot here, we have a 3, we have a 3, we have a 6, and a 6. So we're going to focus on these 2 because we know 6 is greater than 3. So one of these 2 is going to come first. And we need to look next to the tens column to see which one it's going to be. We have a 2, we have a 3. So we know that 3 is greater than 2. So 632 is going to come first, which means that 623 will come second because, again, 623 has a larger value. It is greater than 326 or 362. Again, we know 63 is going to be last because that has the least value, so I can go ahead and plug that in now. And we are going to focus on 326 and 362. Again, both of them have a 3 in the hundreds column, so that value is the same there. We are going to focus on the tens. Here we have a 2 and we have a 6. And again, we're going from greatest to least, so we're looking for the one that has the biggest value. 6 is greater than 2, so we know that 362 is going to come next, which then leaves one left, which is 326. So again, you guys, you are just focusing on the value of each digit in those numbers based on the place value. So focus on the place value. If the digit is in the hundreds column, we know that every digit in that column is going to represent that's how many hundreds you're going to have. All right, and now we are going to move on to our worksheet, which is see and show. Use these steps to compare numbers. Step 1, line up the numbers by place value in the chart. Okay, and again, when we line them up, we know hundreds, tens, ones. Step 2, compare the digits in the greatest place value first. If they are the same, compare digits in the next place value. That's basically what we were doing in our math task. We lined them, we were focused on the place value. If the numbers were the same, we compared the digits in the next place value. We went from our hundreds to our tens. That's what we're going to be doing in this next worksheet as well. And we know we have greater than, less than, and equal to are our vocab words that we're going to focus on. So if you look at this one, we have 618. And we are comparing that to 634. So if you write them out, we know 634 is greater than, and remember that greater than symbol is going to face the largest number. So 634 is greater than 618. We got that if you looked at the hundreds lining them up, the sixes were the same. So then we went next door to the tens column and we noticed that 3 is greater than 1, so we knew 634 is greater than 618. That is a greater than. An example of less than, here we have 846 and 823. These are lined up based on their place value. Again, the hundreds column is the same, so we need to move next door to compare the numbers in the tens column, and we see that 2 is less than 4, so 823 is less than 846. And again, that less than symbol, the pointy in is going to point to the lowest number, the number that has the less value. Okay, when a number is equal to each other, each of the digits in that place value column are going to be exactly the same. As you see here, the nines and the hundreds column are the same, the sevens and the tens column are the same, and then the eights and the ones column are the same, which means that number is the same. Its value is the same, so 978 is equal to 978. Okay, so now we are going to compare some numbers. I'm going to do a few, and then I want you to try some on your own. And again, remember, you can either write off to the side and line them up based on their place value, or you can look at the hundreds, move over to the tens, and if we need to, move over to the ones. So for number 1, we have 142, and we are comparing it to 124. As you can see, again, it's the same numbers, but its value is going to be different based on the placement of those digits. So we look at, there's a 1 in each hundred spot, so we know that the value of that is 100, so that is the same. So again, we need to move next door to the tens and compare those numbers. So we have a 4 and we have a 2. We know that 4 is greater than 2, so we know 142 is greater than 124. Okay, moving on to number 2, we have 253, and we are comparing that to 257. So again, we're going to start with the hundreds column, both the 2, that's the same, so we need to move on. If you look at the tens column here, this one's a little bit tricky because there's a 5 in both of the tens column. So in this case, we need to move on to the ones to see which number is greater. We have a 3 and we have a 7. We know 7 is greater than 3, so we are going to say 253 is less than 257. If you look at number 3, we have 313, and we are comparing that to 313. Again, let's break it apart based on the place value of each number to compare these. There is a 3 in each hundred spot, so we need to move next door to the tens column. There's a 1 in each tens column, so we need to move next door to the ones. There is a 3 in each one. Because these numbers are exactly the same, their value is exactly the same, and that means that they are equal to each other. I'm going to do a couple more, and then I want you to try some on your own, focusing on that place value. For number 4, we have 842, and we are comparing that to 795. So if we look at this and we are focused on the hundreds column in these numbers, 8 is greater than 7. So we know we don't need to move on and look at any other numbers, because we can tell just by looking at the hundreds column that 842 is greater than 795. Moving on to number 5, we have 694, which we are comparing to 694. Looking at the hundreds column, the 6 and 6 are the value is the same, so we need to move on to the tens column. Moving on to the tens column, 9 and 9 are the same, so now we need to move on to that ones column, and 4 and 4 are exactly the same. So we know 694 and 694 have the same value, so we are going to say they are equal to each other. For number 6, we have 203, and we are comparing this to 153. We are going to compare the place value starting with the hundreds. We have a 2 and we have a 1. We know that 2 is greater than 1, so 203 are greater than 153. And always remembering that the greater symbol, again, remember the alligator video, the alligator mouth is facing the largest number. All right, that is 6 of them. I'm going to go ahead and have you try the next 6 on your own. If you have any questions on those, you can comment or reach out to me and I will help you with those. And the last part of our math today is some fluency practice. And our problem is, our equation rather, is 57 minus 20. So using any strategy, remember we said the easiest way is to just line these up based on the place value, much like we did in the See and Show worksheet. So 57 is going to go on top, and we are going to take 20 away from 50. I'm sorry, we're going to take 20 away from 57, and our goal is to find the difference. So focusing on the ones column, because that's where we always start when we're working through an equation, we have 7 minus 0. If you have 7 of something and you take 0 away, you are left with 7. Now that we have the ones column complete, we are going to move to the tens column where we have 5. We're going to focus on 5 minus 2. If you have 5 of something and you take 2 of those 5 away, you are left with 3. So we know that 57 minus 20 is 37. But we're not going to stop there because they want us to represent this equation in multiple ways. So the next way we're going to represent this is we are going to use models or visuals where we have 57, 1, and so we're going to represent 57 using base 10 blocks rather, sorry, and then we're going to take 20 of those away. So let's make sure we have 57. Each of these 10 bars is worth 10, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Each of these is worth 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So we have 57 represented, and now we're going to take 20 of these away. Well, taking away 20, we're focusing on that 10 column. We're just going to take 10 bars away because 10, 20, that is exactly 20, and we are left with 10, 20, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37. So it matches our answer over here, so we know our work is correct. So moving on, we're going to write a story. And again, each day I say the easiest way to do this is just to come up with your own word problem. You don't have to solve it. You're just coming up with a word problem that represents our equation. And today it's 57 minus 20. There were 57 cookies made. Mrs. Lopez gave away 20 cookies. How many were left? we represented 57, we represented 20, and then whoever was going to solve this would be looking for that difference. How do we know, moving on, how do we know our answer is correct? Remember, when we're checking our work, we're going to do the opposite. That's the inverse operation, okay? So we are going to take our difference and we are going to add it to one of our add-ins, and if we add it correctly and it equals the other add-in, we know that our work is correct. So we have 37, we add 20, which equals 57, and our add-in was 57. We checked, we know our work is right. I hope these videos are helpful, and again, if you guys ever have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to me via class tag or the comment section below in these videos, and I will do my very best to help you find an answer for that. I hope you all are staying safe. I miss you, and we will talk very soon. Goodbye.